Yeah, Uranium's is gonna do most of the commentary, and then they'll just be around, I guess.
Okay, I'm switching over to see Shining Dragon's audio here. Audio here. I'm switching over to see Shining Dragon's audio here.
Oh, they were mad that nobody said, "I'm Batman."
Oh, dang.
Somebody's got to
That's
say
what
it.
Dexter's license plate says.
Oh,
So.
dang. Forgot about that.
Swear to me.
Forgot about that.
So that Batman
That was
race
always
was
my
pretty
favorite
hype,
line.
huh?
Well, it was a close race, bud. Well, it was a close race, bud.
Pacifist.
Okay, I believe I'm ready, actually. Okay, I believe I'm ready, actually.
I'm still waiting for the streams to come up on my end. They're just like spinning and loading forever. For some reason. Oh wait, I see. Fine. Okay, I'm dumb. Flash block, go away. There we go. So which one? Who's on which one here?
Shining on 2, and Scav on 4. Shining on 2, and Scav on 4.
Correct.
I believe I'm ready whenever you guys are then.
Alright, so we have Scavenger and Shining Dragoon, Racing Blaster Master, Uranium Anchor doing the commentary. And UA, do you want to do the honors of the countdown?
Yeah, sure. Alright. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh.
Before we start in earnest, I just want to mention that 7 different people submitted this to AGDQ, so it's a pretty big crowd this time around.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I know at least one of them has already dropped out because she couldn't make it, but
Right.
as far as I know, there's still 6 people left on that list.
Stupid bombs.
So one thing you'll notice them doing is every time they go through one of the doorways, they're going to pause the game because it saves about 12 frames if they time it right. Every time, because it skips the scrolling that the game has to do to go to the next room, and it also saves, if the game is lagging at all, it can save even more time, and it also changes the timing in the next room because enemies will spawn at slightly different positions. In most cases it won't matter, but there's a couple times when it can change the positions of enemies significantly enough that it's not something you want to forget.
Yeah, there's a specific room and area too that if you don't do the pause trick, you will get hit guaranteed coming into the room every time.
Yep. So they're going to be.
Wow, I've never seen it spawn there. Okay. I've taken a lot of damage. Fuck. Let's just take this real quick.
So they're going to be taking the special weapon drops from these guys. One thing about this game is that a particular enemy type will only ever drop a particular kind of power-up. Most enemies will drop health, some will drop hover fuel, and then a very select few will drop a special weapon of some kind. And those zombie skull heads drop a pretty powerful missile shot, which is going to be mostly used in Area 3. Because there's some enemies that take a lot of shots, but the missiles will kill them in one shot, so it helps to get past them quickly. That boss they just killed gives them a power-up for the tank that increases the shot power by 50%, and it also lets them kill the gate guardian that they're about to run into. So you can use any weapon on the Gate Guardian once you have the gun power, but until you have the gun power, you cannot kill the Gate Guardian. And as soon as you kill the Gate Guardian, then the gate opens, and you can head on to level 2.
I'm screwing up pretty bad right now.
And this just in, I just heard that the Yeti is printing up the iRace Blaster Master at AGDQ 2016 t-shirts. So get those now.
Oh man.
Oh man, I need to get like 5.
Yep. So this game, if you're not familiar with it, it's early. It's a fairly early NES game actually. Came out in '88, and it's got a lot of similarities to Metroid in that it's kind of open world exploration, and you can only go to areas once you've picked up the power-ups that let you go there. It's a bit more linear than Metroid, but it's got a pretty good exploration feel to it because there's some backtracking as well. Like for example, later on, once they beat Area 3, the entrance to Area 4 is all the way back at the beginning of the game because they get a power-up that lets them go up the cliff. And it's pretty well known, I would say, compared to some of the other stuff that we've seen in this game. But surprisingly, up until recently hadn't really seen a lot of speedrun attention paid to it. Like, I was one of the first people to really try to speedrun it. There was one guy who did a run back in, I want to say, like 2005, 2006, named Megafrost. He did a Deathless run. It was about 4409, and that stood for a while, and then in early 2009, I decided I wanted to not only improve the Deathless run, but also to do a Death Warps run, because that saves about, at the time, it saved about 6 minutes over the Deathless run. And I guess actually the spread is still about the same, still about 6 minutes difference. Because since then, there have been a lot more. There've been a lot of discoveries in terms of things you can actually skip. Like for the longest time, this game was considered really hard to skip anything in, but then somebody discovered some tricks that lets you, in the Death Warps run, lets you skip basically all of Area 4, and you never have to kill the 4th boss at all. And then even in a Deathless run, it still lets you skip some significant portions of Area 5, which saves a bunch of time. They're about to do a trick that actually made it into the Nintendo Power inserts that you would see in cartridges sometimes. It's like, this is an example of a trick you can do. You can learn if you subscribe to Nintendo Power. Basically, all they do is they throw a grenade, and they pause the game right as the grenade hits the boss's weak point, and the game continues to check for damage even while the game is paused. So I think it's about 8 times a second, the boss will still continue to take damage from the grenade, even though everything is stuck in place. And so after about 8 or 10 seconds of that, you unpause the game and the boss is dead.
Yep.
You cannot use that exactly like that on every boss in the game. You can only do it on 2, 4, 6, and 7. But there is a slightly modified trick that was discovered a couple of years ago that works on a couple more of the bosses. Specifically on 5 and 8. It doesn't work quite the same way though, because what you have to do is you have to constantly be pausing and unpausing the game. Because the weak point actually disappears, but the invincibility frames continue to tick down even while the game is paused. So you can really slow down the boss's movement, and it saves a bunch of time. So when they killed that last boss, they got the other power-up for the tank's main gun. It now does double damage compared to the original gun, and also can destroy certain blocks, which will come into play more later in a couple of sections where you end up having to go on a little spelunking expedition to get through a couple of areas later on. And here's one of the places where they're going to be using the missiles to kill because these kettle these kettle-looking enemies throw bombs everywhere, and if you let them throw bombs, not only is that really dangerous because the bombs do a lot of damage, but it also tends to lag the game up really bad, so you want to kill them with a missile before they even get a chance to shoot the bomb, ideally. You can see some of these enemies are dropping H, which is hover fuel, and even though they don't actually have hover yet, they can actually collect the fuel. And if they don't collect any fuel, then they'll have hover, and then they just won't have any fuel for it. So they want to make sure that they... Actually, wait, no, they're doing Death Warp, so it doesn't actually matter for this. If they were doing Deathless, they would want to make sure to collect some hover before they beat the third boss, but since they're doing Death Warps, it doesn't matter, because as soon as you continue, you lose all your hover fuel anyway.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, that's one reason why the Death Warps run has a bit more RNG to it than a Deathless run, because in a Deathless run you can tend to make sure you kill some specific enemies on the way there, and you'll usually end up with enough hover. But in a Death Warps run, unfortunately, there just aren't enough enemies to guarantee that you'll have enough hover when you need it. And so there's one time when you absolutely have to farm some hover, based on some randomly spawning enemies, and that's... Thankfully, it's only about 10 minutes into the run, so if you get a really bad pattern, you can reset and you won't feel like you wasted a run. But it still can be pretty...
I have no idea what this is there, but okay.
So they're actually pretty close to each other right now. Looks like they're only about 4 or 5 seconds apart. Pretty good for as far in as this run is. Because one of the things about this game is there isn't a whole lot of huge randomness to it, but there's enough randomness that you can get essentially random spikes of lag throughout the whole run, and you can lose like a second and a half throughout a level and not even realize it until you get to a certain point and realize that the music is further back than it should be, just because it took you longer to get there. So this next boss that they're about to fight is probably one of the gatekeepers for this game. It's a pretty difficult fight if you've never done it before. But he's got a fixed pattern, so once you learn the pattern, then he's much easier to defeat. But the first time most people who played this game, they probably struggled really for a long time on this guy.
Bad pattern. I hate how their movement seems to be random sometimes.
It's not random at all, actually. Their shot patterns are, but their movement isn't. So it's just really hard to get the positioning right, because it's pretty precise.
Yeah, it seems like they always spawn in the same spot, but the direction they move is sometimes flaky.
No, it's not. It's always the same. So they just used their first continue. They're going to do that 3 more times, and it basically lets them skip back to the beginning of Area 3. Saves probably about a minute of backtracking. And now they're going to be making their way to Area 4. And unfortunately, like I said, there's only 2 fixed enemies on the entire way back that can even possibly give you hover, and they give you hover maybe about half the time. But you need 3 in order to get to Area 4, so even if you got lucky and both of the enemies that they're going to be killing, or I guess I'm not sure if they kill both of them, but even if you get hover from both of them, you still need to hang around in the first area and kill the randomly spawning, they fly in a sine wave pattern, and they can drop hover, but they can take forever to spawn sometimes. Okay, so it looks like Scav and... Okay, looks like they both got 1. Okay, so Scav got 2. That's an interesting strategy. I've never seen that before.
It didn't help though.
Yeah. Alright, so Scav still needs 1 more. And okay, so he's got it. So that was reasonably quick. Like, if I was doing a run, I probably would have accepted that. That's That's pretty fast.
I'm just
Looks like
load.
Shining gonna... Should still need one more, though. Two more, rather. And they need to be kind of careful here, because if these guys jump on them and knock them down, they are screwed and have to go, like, reset the... I don't know if they're gonna have to reset the entire level, but they do have to at least farm more hover. Pretty hard to recover from getting knocked down here. That's a run ender if that happens. But thankfully, it's pretty easy to avoid them. You just gotta be careful. And so, Scavenger is about to come up to the point where he is going to skip basically all of Area 4, because there's a glitch with Jason in the side view sections where if you turn around right as you enter a door, it kind of displaces your position, and he's able to go through the locked gate with Jason without having to get the key that you would normally have to get. You normally get the key from the level 4 boss, but in a Death Warps run you don't need to do that. And then he's doing the same thing here again. He's displacing his visual position with his physical position, and then what ends up happening is he swims under the rocks, and then when you pause the game, it resyncs your position, and suddenly he's under the rocks that you would normally need the tank's crusher shot to get underneath. But now that means he doesn't have to bring the tank into this level at all. At least not until after he's beat the boss.
I got so scared
and that's
for a
it.
second. I'll suffer.
That means he can take one of the game overs to get the tank back until later on. So that discovery saved probably about 4.5 minutes all by itself, just from not having to do Area 4. Because the record I had before that was discovered for a Death Warps run was a 36:58. And eventually when I got around to improving the run, I eventually managed to get it down to a 32:53, so that's basically 4 minutes all by itself, just from that discovery. And this next section that they're coming up on is probably the next Gatekeeper boss that took everybody a very long time to figure out how to beat. He's a lot easier to beat if you bring in full gunpowder, but unfortunately full gunpowder requires, not only does it require farming, but it also requires that you don't take any damage in order to maintain the gunpowder, so in a speedrun it's not a particularly good approach. But,
Oh shit, why am I taking damage? I don't want to take...
yeah, unfortunately this is a pretty dangerous boss, but since you want to die anyway, Scav looks like he's okay, so Scav here is trying to do a frame-perfect trick. If you manage to leave the room right as the boss spawns, you'll actually end up fighting it in the room outside, and it's a lot easier to kill because he'll get stuck in the wall. It looks like Shining just decided not to even bother with it. But as you can see, Shining is spamming pause and try to hold the boss in place as long as you can, and you end up doing a lot more damage than you would be able to otherwise. Because the boss stays in position for the run. Oh wow, Scab got a really bad RNG there. Boss didn't hold still for very long at all. But you might still be able to pull this out. Oh wow, nice. Almost in perfect sync there.
Except we're gonna have to take an extra death.
So now they're gonna kill themselves and work back to the beginning of Area 5. And then we'll get the tank back. Now they have the dive power-up that allows the tank to maneuver in water. Now if you were doing a Deathless run, there's normally supposed to be a section where in order to get back to the beginning of the stage you have to swim through this big, long section. It's actually pretty relaxing, but unfortunately, even in the Deathless run now, it's slower because you can actually do the same trick they did to get underneath the rocks. You can do the same trick to get above the rocks as Jason. So you can leave the tank in the top section, blow up the rocks, swim down, kill the boss, do the trick to get back up on the rocks, and then the tank is right there at the beginning of the stage and you don't have to swim through huge long section. And it saves like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. I'm not sure exactly how much time it saves, but so the dive basically sees almost no use in this run anymore on either category, which is kind of unfortunate because I think it's a pretty fun power up. And as you can see, now they're in Ice World. Basically, everything in this, anything that's not the reddish palette that you see is going to be slippery. So there's a couple of spots in here where if they slip and fall, they're going to lose a ton of time. But generally not something that happens once you get good at the run. But now that I've said that, I'm sure I'm going to jinx it.
If your controller doesn't feel like jumping sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those of you who remember the first SGDQ can, I'm sure, remember my priceless reaction to slipping down here. But
I definitely remember that.
probably a bit too old school for most of you.
That's one of the first things I do when I learn a new run is go and watch all the previous GDQ runs and just other runs in general.
Wow, okay. That was terrible.
Now this room that they're in right now, this is one of the trickier rooms in this level because it's so slippery and you have to weave your way through the blocks. It's pretty good room to lose several seconds in if you're not good at the ice physics, or even if you're good at the ice physics and just having a bad day. I gotta admit, I'm surprised that the race is this close, this far into the run. I would have expected the RNG to screw one of them over much harder than this by
Could get
now.
my tank to turn around.
Oh, something I think I forgot to mention before is when you're in the overhead sections, if you hold down the grenade button, Jason will not change his facing, so it allows you to sidestep. Years and years and years before Doom allowed you to do that, and it's really useful for some of the bosses. Like the level 5 boss, for example, is really useful there. It's less useful for most of the other bosses, because most of the other bosses you can just use the grenade trick on, but it definitely helps on a couple. And this is another boss that you can do the grenade trick on. Unfortunately, this boss has a nasty habit of not dying correctly.
Shit. I'm dead.
Speaking of not dying,
Yeah, see, I shouldn't have said anything, because now the problem is, I still don't know what causes this. It's definitely lag related. And unfortunately, sometimes the boss just does not want to die properly. And it can waste 15 plus seconds just waiting for him to actually realize he's dead.
that was actually one of the worst I've had in a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, and
I've
of course I
definitely
don't have
had
anything on.
several good runs lost to that bug, and it's really obnoxious. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a way to reliably prevent it from happening. It can happen even if you manage to hit the guy on the very first frame he's vulnerable. It's really obnoxious. But now they are on their way to Area 7 because the power they just got allows them to climb up horizontal or vertical walls. But to get there, they're going to have to suicide again because in order to get back over onto the other side of the gate is the gate's still locked, but they're on the wrong side of it. But if they have a game over here, they'll end up back at the beginning of Area 4 on the other side of the locked gate, and they'll be able to continue on.
My controller actually has an issue with its select button right now.
That's not good. So when you're not in the tank, you cannot fall very far before you die. As Jason, you can only fall You can fall 2 blocks and not take damage. You can fall 3 blocks and take a little bit of damage, or you can fall 4 blocks and instantly die. And useful. That's the fastest way to get a game over in some cases, like you just saw. There's some other times when deliberately killing yourself in other spots is helpful, because you can take a bunch of damage to make something fast, and then just, since you're low already, you can just take an extra hit and go ahead and die because you're right next to your respawn point. Help save some time that you would otherwise waste. Jay, because right now, both of these guys have faster times than I do. And maybe that'll change soon, but I don't know. We'll see.
That's recent, too. I just got second place like a week ago.
Yeah, Shining Dragoon has had a faster time than me for quite some time now. And I just think, Scavenger just recently managed to sneak his way into second place. Like right now, I'm actually in 4th place because Yudong has a time 3 seconds faster than mine, but he did that run with the new strats, and my run is with the old strats. So the time difference is bigger than it sounds like. But I just haven't done a serious speed run of the Death Warps run in probably about 3 years now. So there's definitely some new stuff for me to implement into the run when I inevitably pick it back up. But since the run is currently on the schedule for AGDQ, I'm definitely going to have to make sure to put some effort into the run again.
Not enough people know Deathless.
Yeah, honestly, I think I prefer Deathless as a run. Just because
It's less RNG.
you do more of the game, and I think it allows you some more planning, and it also removes some of the RNG. But the Death Warp run is 6 minutes faster, so.
That RNG though, jeez.
This area is really easy to get lagged.
They're about to get to the sections where you use the crusher to dig your way through this dirt. It's actually kind of a fun little section, in my opinion, but not everybody shares my opinion. People think it's tedious.
I'm a fan.
I only don't like it when I mess it up.
But I see a couple people mentioning that I probably know more about this game than anybody, and that's probably true because I actually wrote a map editor for this about 10 years ago. I managed to find all kinds of fun data that you can modify. Like I even figured out how to modify some of the boss patterns in a predictable way, which is how I know that the Area 3 boss works on a fixed cycle because his movement pattern. Managed to decode it, so I know exactly how it works. Let's see. The way the RNG works in this game is that basically only when something needs the RNG does it advance. But the thing is there's so many things that advance the RNG that it's really hard to predict. So basically, let's see. When you kill an enemy, it needs to hit the RNG to know whether it spawns something. There's a lot of enemies that use the RNG to determine whether or not they fire a shot, or what direction they shoot in, or what direction they move in, or whether or not or if they do some kind of special move. The grenades advance the RNG because the explosion effect that they do is random. Let's see. Like the thing is about this game is that the RNG starts at a fixed value, but the first 5 or 6 enemies in the game modify the RNG every frame they're on the screen, so it basically becomes immediately impossible to predict.
That's nice.
No.
Oh,
Nerves.
So This is the hardest skip in the game, in my opinion, because it's really precise. But basically, what happens is this red stuff, I suppose, is supposed to be lava. It instantly kills you, but if you're invincible while you step over it, it doesn't actually kill you right away. So there's you can skip probably about half of this section by skipping over the lava rivers by hitting damaged at just the right time. But unfortunately, that first skip is really the timing on it is really tight. So there's been a fair number of my runs that have gotten lost there as well. So this guy is really dangerous if you let him live too long. So you want to make sure to get him on his first hop as soon as he opens his mouth. You can't actually hurt him until he opens his mouth, but thankfully he's vulnerable to the grenade trick. So if you can time it right, he's pretty easy to kill. But unfortunately, that timing is actually pretty difficult. And so that was the excuse me. That was the last deliberate game over they're going to be taking, because you only get 4, and if you game over 5 times, you have to start the entire game over. But that saves quite a bit of backtracking, because Area 7, I think it's about a minute of backtracking. But unfortunately, it removes their hover once again, and hover is a really nice thing to have in Area 8. In my current run, I actually spend a bit of time farming some hover on the way to Area 8, just because it makes it so much easier. But it's not strictly necessary. It just makes it a lot easier. So if I pick up this game again, I'm probably going to end up not farming any hover. I'm not sure if these guys are going to or not. They're just going to go for it. I guess we'll find out in a second.
This is my favorite song for some reason.
Area 3? Yeah, that's a good one. I think my favorite's Area 6, though, but Area 3 is probably my second favorite.
And have a look. Nope.
Alright, looks like Shining is just gonna cross his fingers and hope he gets some.
A lot of screams.
Yeah, that's probably... This little section that Shining is in right now, or just went through, is okay. So neither of them got any hover, which is unfortunate because it's going to make your 8 quite a bit harder. But that section where they're crawling across the ceiling here is the last opportunity for the game to troll you, because the sine wave flyers can spawn and knock you off the ceiling, and it loses you like 10 or 15 seconds if that happens, because you have to go back to the beginning of the room, crawl across the entire wall again. But thankfully, neither one of them had that happen to them. But as I said, they're both going to have to do this entire stage without any hover, which gets pretty hairy.
That's why I actually got that health.
But the problem
making the jump.
My biggest complaint about this game is that as soon as you get the power up that lets you go in the... Yeah, neither one of them really made it through there cleanly. That's one of the areas where it's super nice to have the hover. Yeah, one problem with this game is if you die, you don't actually die until you hit the ground. So if you fall and then like have to fall for a long while, like Scav just did, then it really delays your actual death. And that was a really good room on Shining's part, getting through there with no hover. It looks like Scav's doing a pretty good job too, although I shouldn't have said anything. I think I'm going to jinx it. Okay, yeah, they both made it through that room really cleanly for not having any hover. That's way harder than it looks. Like when the first time I beat this game, when I was like 7 years old, I got stuck in that room for weeks. It took me weeks to be able to get through that room.
That's not good.
Now, excuse me. I should have grabbed some water before I started. I've been talking a whole lot, and now my throat's getting dry.
That's almost done, I guess.
Thankfully, once they get through that room, there's basically nothing. There's no hard room left, but the last boss fight can get kind of dangerous. And the last overhead section is ridiculously short for some reason. I'm not for sure why they did this, but it's basically just one room and you just walk straight up, and then there's the final area. There's actually 2 bosses. The first one is this dinosaur face-looking thing. You can use the modified grenade trick on it to try to kill it before it puts too many of these discs out, because these discs really lag the game up. And so the faster you can kill them. Okay, so that was pretty good on trying to start. Now here comes the final boss. They're going to be abusing the fact that the boss can't hurt you if he's invincibility flashing. So if they can throw grenades fast enough to keep the boss in invincibility frame, he can't actually hurt you. But you have to throw them pretty fast. You have to it's only for about 8 frames, so you have to throw about 8 grenades per second. And he's got the most hit points out of anything in the game. And Shining, time on Shining. And then he's got 192 hit points, which is 96 grenades. So you have to throw 96 grenades at 8 grenades per second to avoid getting hit by this guy. And he hurts you a lot. You can only take 4 hits from him before he kills you.
And
Scav's about to finish, and
time.
Yeah, the death lag on that guy can be annoying too sometimes.
yeah, fortunately the last 2 bosses can both do the death lag thing that the Area 6 boss can do.
What were our times?
33, 25
looks
on
like
Shining
30,
Dragoon.
33,
33,
25,
25 on Shining Dragoon. Yeah.
So those are really good times for a live setting, because this game has enough RNG in it that it can you can lose a lot of time if you get bad luck.
Yeah, most runs on crab, I'm always plus 30, plus 40 seconds.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, that was a pleasure to watch, guys. Thanks for.
Thank you for commentating it for us.
Yeah, that was very helpful.
Yeah, definitely great race by both runners. Uranium Maker, great commentary. These races are just getting closer and closer.
Yep.
And Blaster Master is such a fun game. That's why so many people run it.
It's definitely a good one.
Yep. If you haven't played it, do yourself a favor and play it.